Hi there, and welcome to another episode of The Sleepy Space. Close your eyes and feel this moment. Right now, as you settle into stillness, time surrounds you like an invisible ocean. It carries no weight, makes no sound, yet it shapes every breath you take, every thought that drifts through your consciousness. This is where our journey begins, not in the laboratories of physicists or the workshops of clockmakers, but in the quiet sanctuary of your own awareness. Time as you experience it is nothing like the steady tick of a clock. It's alive, fluid, responsive to your emotions and attention, like a river that changes its pace depending on the landscape it flows through. When you're absorbed in something beautiful, watching clouds drift across an afternoon sky, listening to rain against your window, or lost in conversation with someone you love, time seems to dissolve. Minutes become invisible, hours fold into themselves, and you emerge from these moments wondering where the time went. But place yourself in a waiting room, in traffic, or watching a pot of water that refuses to boil, and time transforms into something thick and stubborn. Each second stretches like taffy. Each minute feels weighted with lead. The clock on the wall becomes a tormentor, its hands moving so slowly you wonder if it's broken. Yet the same 60 seconds that crawled by in boredom can flash past in an instant when you're running late. This isn't a flaw in your perception. It's one of the most beautiful mysteries of human consciousness. Your brain doesn't simply record time, it creates it, moment by moment, weaving together attention, emotion, and memory into your personal experience of duration. When you're fully present, when your mind is occupied and engaged, your internal timekeeper relaxes its grip. It stops counting and starts experiencing. Scientists call this subjective time, and it reveals something profound about the nature of consciousness itself. Your brain contains no single clock, no central timepiece ticking away the seconds. Instead, it uses a symphony of neural processes, each keeping time in its own way. Some track the rhythm of your heartbeat, others monitor the cycles of brain waves, and still others count the pulses of neural activity like raindrops on a roof. Think about your childhood summers, those endless golden days that seemed to stretch toward infinity. Every experience was new, every moment packed with discovery. Your young brain was working overtime, processing and cataloging each sensation, each adventure. When you look back now, those summers feel impossibly long because your mind recorded them in such rich detail. You have more memories per day, more mental footage of those times, creating the illusion that more time must have passed. As you've grown older, routines have settled into your life like well-worn paths. Your brain has become efficient at recognizing patterns, at compressing familiar experiences into mental shortcuts. The daily commute, the morning coffee, the evening news, these experiences flow past with less conscious attention, leaving lighter impressions in memory. When you look back, there's less to remember, and time seems to have accelerated. But tonight, in this quiet moment, you can feel time differently. Your breathing has slowed, your heartbeat has found a gentle rhythm. The urgency that drives your daytime hours has melted away, leaving something more fundamental, the simple awareness of being present. This is time at its most essential, not a resource to be spent or saved, but a medium in which consciousness unfolds. Your emotions paint time in different colors. Fear can stretch a moment into an eternity. Those terrible seconds when you're falling, when you realized you've made a mistake, when you're waiting for news you don't want to hear. In these moments, your brain shifts into a different mode, recording everything with extraordinary precision. Later, when you replay these memories, they unfold in slow motion, packed with details you didn't know you were noticing. Joy does the opposite, collapsing time into points of pure presence, a perfect sunset, a child's laughter, the moment you realize you're in love. These experiences seem to exist outside of time altogether. They're not measured in minutes or hours, but in the intensity of feeling, the depth of connection, the brightness of awareness. Even your language shapes how you experience time. When you say you're spending time, you're thinking of it as a currency, something finite and valuable. When you talk about killing time, you're treating it as an enemy to be defeated. But when you speak of being present, you're touching something deeper, the recognition that time isn't something you have, but something you are. Cultural wisdom traditions have long recognized this fluid nature of time. Meditation practices invite you to step outside the stream of clock time and into what some call vertical time, the timeless awareness that underlies all experience. In this state, moments expand to contain infinite depth, and you discover that the present moment is not a fleeting instant, but a spacious, eternal now. Your body keeps its own time too. Your circadian rhythms rise and fall like internal tides, governing sleep and wakefulness, alertness and rest. Your heart beats its steady rhythm. Your breath flows in and out. Your cells divide and regenerate according to biological clocks that have been ticking for millions of years. You are not just experiencing time, you are made of it, a temporary constellation of processes that dance together in the brief, beautiful interval called your life. Tonight, as you rest here in the borderland between waking and sleeping, you can feel all these layers of time at once. The immediate present of your breathing, the slow cycles of your body finding rest, the memories of your day settling into their proper places, the anticipation of tomorrow's light. You are a living intersection of all these temporal streams, a conscious moment in the vast flow of existence. This is the first mystery of time, not its physics, but its lived reality. Before we can understand how time works in the universe, we must understand how it works in us. For in the end, time is not something we observe from the outside, but something we participate in from within. We are not separate from time. We are time made conscious, duration given awareness, the universe's way of experiencing its own unfolding. And yet, as we rest in this intimate understanding of time's personal nature, questions begin to stir in the depths of consciousness. If time feels so fluid and personal, why have humans spent millennia trying to measure it, to cage it in clocks and calendars? What drove our ancestors to look up at the stars and see not just beauty, but a cosmic timepiece waiting to be read?
Imagine awakening, not to the sharp insistence of an alarm, but to the gradual lightening of the sky outside your window. Your body stirs naturally as dawn approaches, responding to signals older than civilization itself. This is how your ancestors lived for thousands of years, not ruled by the mechanical precision of clocks, but guided by the patient rhythms of the natural world. In those ancient times, time was not a number on a digital display, but a living presence that breathed with the earth. The sun was the great timekeeper, rising and setting with reliable majesty, painting the sky in colors that announced the day's progress. Your ancestors didn't need to check the time. They felt it in their bones, saw it in the angle of light, heard it in the songs of birds that marked each portion of the day. The first timekeepers were shadows. Picture the ancient Egyptians, perhaps around 3500 BCE, watching the shadow of a simple stick planted in the ground. As the sun traced its arc across the sky, the shadow would swing like a slow, enormous clock hand, marking the passage of hours. These shadow clocks, or gnomons, were humanity's first attempt to capture time's elusive flow and make it visible. But these early hours were not like yours. In summer, when the sun lingered high and bright, the daylight hours stretched long and luxurious. In winter, they contracted into brief, precious intervals. An Egyptian hour in July might last what you would call 75 minutes, while a December hour might pass in just 45 minutes. Time itself seemed to breathe with the seasons, expanding and contracting like a living thing. Your ancestors were patient observers of these celestial rhythms. They noticed that the moon, too, kept reliable time, waxing and waning in a cycle that repeated every 29.5 days. This lunar rhythm became the foundation for the first calendars, dividing the year into months that followed the moon's faithful dance. Women especially understood this rhythm, for their bodies kept time with the moon's phases, connecting them to the cosmic clockwork in the most intimate way. The ancient Babylonians, master astronomers of their time, looked up at the night sky and saw not just scattered points of light, but a vast, intricate timepiece. They divided the sky into 12 sections, each corresponding to a different constellation that would rise at different times of the year. This celestial calendar allowed them to predict the flooding of rivers, the right time to plant, the approach of seasons. They were reading time written in starlight, decoding messages that had been traveling across space for years just to reach their eyes. In the Americas, the Maya developed perhaps the most sophisticated understanding of time in the ancient world. They tracked not just the movements of the sun and moon, but the complex cycles of Venus, Mars, and other planets. Their calendar was actually multiple calendars nested within each other. A daily calendar of 260 days, a solar calendar of 365 days, and a long count that could measure vast epochs of time. To them, time was not a line, but a spiral, with patterns that repeated at different scales, like music with multiple overlapping rhythms. Water, too, became a timekeeper. The ancient Egyptians and later the Greeks developed water clocks, elegant vessels that measured time by the steady drip of water from one container to another. These clepsydra, as they were called, could function day or night, independent of weather or season. The sound of water dripping became humanity's first artificial heartbeat, a mechanical rhythm that echoed the natural pulse of time. Imagine sitting beside one of these water clocks in ancient Athens, listening to the gentle, hypnotic drip that marked the passing moments. Each drop was a small mortality, a reminder that time flows onward regardless of human desires or fears. The Greeks understood this profoundly. Their word for time, chronos, carried the weight of inevitability, the relentless passage that brings both growth and decay. But they also recognized another kind of time, kairos, the perfect moment, the right time for action. This was time not as duration, but as opportunity, not as quantity, but as quality. A skilled archer knows kairos, the precise instant when the arrow must be released. A poet knows it too, the moment when exactly the right word presents itself. Your ancestors lived more closely to both kinds of time, measuring chronos with their water clocks and sundials, but staying alert to the whispered arrivals of kairos. The invention of the mechanical clock in medieval Europe marked a profound shift in human consciousness. For the first time became divorced from natural rhythms. Monks who had been rising and sleeping with the sun now followed the artificial rhythm of bells that rang at measured intervals. The natural flow of time began to be replaced by something more rigid, more mechanical, more divorced from the living world. Yet even as mechanical timekeeping spread, your ancestors maintained their connection to natural rhythms. Farmers still planted by the phases of the moon, sailors still navigated by the stars, and everyone still felt the subtle changes in their bodies as seasons turned. The old knowledge didn't disappear, it simply went underground, continuing to pulse in the deeper layers of human awareness. You carry this ancient wisdom in your bones still. Notice how your energy naturally peaks and valleys throughout the day, how certain seasons make you feel more contemplative or energetic, how you can sense the approach of weather changes before they arrive. Your circadian rhythms, evolved over millions of years, still respond to the same solar cues that guided your ancestors. Your body knows things about time that your mind has forgotten. The word time itself carries echoes of these ancient understandings. It comes from the Old English tima, meaning limited space of time, season, proper time. Before that, it traces back to an Indo-European root meaning to stretch or to extend. Time as something that stretches out before us, elastic and alive, not the rigid grid of hours and minutes that govern your modern life. In quiet moments, you can still access this older way of experiencing time. When you watch a sunset, really watch it, you slip into the same temporal awareness that guided your ancestors. The progression of colors, the gradual dimming of light, the way shadows lengthen and merge. This is time as it was meant to be experienced, not as abstract numbers, but as living change. Your ancestors understood something that modern life often obscures, that time is not separate from life, but woven into its very fabric. They didn't save time or spend it, they lived it. They didn't fight against time or try to manage it, they danced with it. Their clocks were not masters, but partners, helping them stay in rhythm with the larger symphony of existence. Tonight, as you rest in this quiet space between day and night, you can feel the ancient rhythms still pulsing beneath the surface of your awareness. Your heartbeat echoes the primordial drums that first helped humans mark time. Your breathing follows the same tide-like rhythm that your ancestors felt in the rising and falling of the sea. Your body temperature drops as darkness deepens, following circadian patterns older than civilization itself. This is the gift your ancestors left you, not just the knowledge of how to measure time, but the wisdom of how to live within it. They knew that time is not a river flowing past you, but an ocean in which you swim. They understood that you are not separate from time, but part of its unfolding, a conscious moment in its Imagine awakening, not to the sharp insistence of an alarm, but to the gradual lightening of the sky outside your window. Your body stirs naturally as dawn approaches, responding to signals older than civilization itself. This is how your ancestors lived for thousands of years, not ruled by the mechanical precision of clocks, but guided by the patient rhythms of the natural world. In those ancient times, time was not a number on a digital display, but a living presence that breathed with the earth. The sun was the great timekeeper, rising and setting with reliable majesty, painting the sky in colors that announced the day's progress. Your ancestors didn't need to check the time. They felt it in their bones, saw it in the angle of light, heard it in the songs of birds that marked each portion of the day. The first timekeepers were shadows. Picture the ancient Egyptians, perhaps around 3500 BCE, watching the shadow of a simple stick planted in the ground. As the sun traced its arc across the sky, the shadow would swing like a slow, enormous clock hand, marking the passage of hours. These shadow clocks, or gnomons, were humanity's first attempt to capture time's elusive flow and make it visible. But these early hours were not like yours. In summer, when the sun lingered high and bright, the daylight hours stretched long and luxurious. In winter, they contracted into brief, precious intervals. An Egyptian hour in July might last what you would call 75 minutes, while a December hour might pass in just 45 minutes. Time itself seemed to breathe with the seasons, expanding and contracting like a living thing. Your ancestors were patient observers of these celestial rhythms. They noticed that the moon, too, kept reliable time, waxing and waning in a cycle that repeated every 29.5 days. This lunar rhythm became the foundation for the first calendars, dividing the year into months that followed the moon's faithful dance. Women especially understood this rhythm, for their bodies kept time with the moon's phases, connecting them to the cosmic clockwork in the most intimate way. The ancient Babylonians, master astronomers of their time, looked up at the night sky and saw not just scattered points of light, but a vast, intricate timepiece. They divided the sky into 12 sections, each corresponding to a different constellation that would rise at different times of the year. This celestial calendar allowed them to predict the flooding of rivers, the right time to plant, the approach of seasons. They were reading time written in starlight, decoding messages that had been traveling across space for years just to reach their eyes. In the Americas, the Maya developed perhaps the most sophisticated understanding of time in the ancient world. They tracked not just the movements of the sun and moon, but the complex cycles of Venus, Mars, and other planets. Their calendar was actually multiple calendars nested within each other. A daily calendar of 260 days, a solar calendar of 365 days, and a long count that could measure vast epochs of time. To them, time was not a line, but a spiral, with patterns that repeated at different scales, like music with multiple overlapping rhythms. Water, too, became a timekeeper. The ancient Egyptians and later the Greeks developed water clocks, elegant vessels that measured time by the steady drip of water from one container to another. These clepsydra, as they were called, could function day or night, independent of weather or season. The sound of water dripping became humanity's first artificial heartbeat, a mechanical rhythm that echoed the natural pulse of time. Imagine sitting beside one of these water clocks in ancient Athens, listening to the gentle, hypnotic drip that marked the passing moments. Each drop was a small mortality, a reminder that time flows onward regardless of human desires or fears. The Greeks understood this profoundly. Their word for time, chronos, carried the weight of inevitability, the relentless passage that brings both growth and decay. But they also recognized another kind of time, kairos, the perfect moment, the right time for action. This was time not as duration, but as opportunity, not as quantity, but as quality. A skilled archer knows kairos, the precise instant when the arrow must be released. A poet knows it too, the moment when exactly the right word presents itself. Your ancestors lived more closely to both kinds of time, measuring chronos with their water clocks and sundials, but staying alert to the whispered arrivals of kairos. The invention of the mechanical clock in medieval Europe marked a profound shift in human consciousness. For the first time, time became divorced from natural rhythms. Monks who had been rising and sleeping with the sun now followed the artificial rhythm of bells that rang at measured intervals. The natural flow of time began to be replaced by something more rigid, more mechanical, more divorced from the living world. Yet even as mechanical timekeeping spread, your ancestors maintained their connection to natural rhythms. Farmers still planted by the phases of the moon, sailors still navigated by the stars, and everyone still felt the subtle changes in their bodies as seasons turned. The old knowledge didn't disappear, it simply went underground, continuing to pulse in the deeper layers of human awareness. You carry this ancient wisdom in your bones still. Notice how your energy naturally peaks and valleys throughout the day, how certain seasons make you feel more contemplative or energetic, how you can sense the approach of weather changes before they arrive. Your circadian rhythms, evolved over millions of years, still respond to the same solar cues that guided your ancestors. Your body knows things about time that your mind has forgotten. The word time itself carries echoes of these ancient understandings. It comes from the Old English tima, meaning limited space of time, season, proper time. Before that, it traces back to an Indo-European root meaning to stretch or to extend. Time as something that stretches out before us, elastic and alive, not the rigid grid of hours and minutes that govern your modern life. In quiet moments, you can still access this older way of experiencing time. When you watch a sunset, really watch it, you slip into the same temporal awareness that guided your ancestors. The progression of colors, the gradual dimming of light, the way shadows lengthen and merge, this is time as it was meant to be experienced, not as abstract numbers, but as living change. Your ancestors understood something that modern life often obscures, that time is not separate from life, but woven into its very fabric. They didn't save time or spend it, they lived it. They didn't fight against time or try to manage it, they danced with it. Their clocks were not masters, but partners, helping them stay in rhythm with the larger symphony of existence. Tonight, as you rest in this quiet space between day and night, you can feel the ancient rhythms still pulsing beneath the surface of your awareness. Your heartbeat echoes the primordial drums that first helped humans mark time. Your breathing follows the same tide-like rhythm that your ancestors felt in the rising and falling of the sea. Your body temperature drops as darkness deepens, following circadian patterns older than civilization itself. This is the gift your ancestors left you, not just the knowledge of how to measure time, but the wisdom of how to live within it. They knew that time is not a river flowing past you, but an ocean in which you swim. They understood that you are not separate from time, but part of its unfolding, a conscious moment in its
vast, patient breathing. And yet, as you rest here in this ancient rhythm of darkness and rest, you might wonder, what happened to this patient, natural relationship with time? What drove humanity to seek ever more precise ways to capture and control time's flow, to break it into smaller and smaller pieces until we could measure it in fractions of seconds?
There's something deeply human about the desire to catch time in a net, to hold it still long enough to examine its secrets. As you lie here in the darkness, surrounded by the quiet hum of electronic devices marking seconds with invisible precision, you're connected to a chain of dreamers and inventors who spent their lives chasing the perfect tick. Picture a medieval monastery in the 13th century, where monks rise in the pre-dawn darkness to pray. They have no clocks as you know them, only the patient progression of candles marked with lines, burning down at predictable rates. 1 candle hour, 2 candle hours, 3. The wax pools and hardens, marking time's passage in melted moments. But candles flicker in drafts, burn faster in cold air, and sometimes fail entirely. The monks dreamed of something more reliable, more faithful to time's true rhythm. Their answer came in the form of the first mechanical clocks, massive, crude machines installed in bell towers, designed not to show time, but to sound it. These early clocks had no faces, no hands pointing to numbers. They simply rang bells at regular intervals, calling the faithful to prayer with bronze voices that echoed across stone courtyards. Time had found its first artificial heartbeat. The heart of these early clocks was a clever invention called the verge escapement, a mechanism that allowed the clock's energy to be released in small, regular pulses. Imagine a wheel with teeth and a pendulum that catches and releases each tooth in turn. Tick, tock, tick, tock. For the first time in human history, time had a mechanical voice, speaking in the language of gears and springs, rather than sun and shadow. But these early clocks were temperamental creatures. They might gain or lose hours in a single day, their rhythm affected by temperature, humidity, and the gradual wearing of their parts. The clockmakers, part engineer, part artist, part philosopher, devoted their lives to taming these mechanical beasts. They adjusted springs, filed gears, and listened to the subtle changes in rhythm that revealed their clock's moods. The real breakthrough came in 1656, when a Dutch scientist named Christian Huygens looked at a pendulum swinging in his workshop and saw the future of timekeeping. He realized that a pendulum, once set in motion, would swing with remarkable regularity. The time it takes to complete one swing depends only on the length of the pendulum, not on how wide the swing is. This was time's first mathematical secret, buried in the simple physics of a weight on a string. Huygens' pendulum clocks were revolutionary. Where earlier clocks might wander by hours, these mechanical marvels kept time to within a minute per day. Suddenly, time became something you could trust, something reliable enough to schedule your life around. The pendulum's steady rhythm, tick-tock, tick-tock, became the heartbeat of the modern world. But accuracy bred ambition. If clockmakers could measure time to the minute, why not to the second? Why not to fractions of a second? The quest for precision became an obsession, driving inventors to create ever more ingenious mechanisms. They crafted escapements from hardened steel, suspended pendulums in vacuum chambers to eliminate air resistance, and wrapped their clocks in temperature-controlled cases to prevent thermal expansion from affecting their rhythm. The most dramatic chapter in this story unfolded on the high seas. Sailors had mastered the art of finding their latitude by measuring the sun's height at noon, but longitude remained a mystery. To know where you were east or west, you needed to know the exact time. And clocks simply couldn't survive the rolling motion of a ship, the salt spray, and the temperature changes of ocean voyages. Enter John Harrison, an English carpenter turned clockmaker who spent decades of his life solving this puzzle. His marine chronometers were marvels of engineering, intricate mechanical brains that could keep accurate time even in the chaos of an ocean storm. His fourth chronometer, completed in 1759, was so precise that it lost only 5 seconds during a voyage to Jamaica. This small, ticking miracle revolutionized navigation and opened the world's oceans to accurate exploration. As you rest here in the 21st century, surrounded by timepieces that would seem like magic to Harrison, you can appreciate the poetry of his achievement. He didn't just build a clock. He built a bridge between the human desire to know our place in the world and the mathematical precision needed to calculate it. His chronometers were dreams made manifest in brass and steel. The industrial age brought new challenges and new solutions. As trains began crisscrossing continents, the need for synchronized time became urgent. It was no longer enough for each town to keep its own time. Schedules had to mesh across vast distances. The concept of time zones was born, an artificial grid laid over the natural flow of the sun's movement, designed to serve the needs of commerce and transportation. But even as mechanical clocks reached extraordinary precision, scientists were discovering that time itself might be more complex than any clockmaker had imagined. The search for perfect timekeeping led to the discovery of new physical principles, the way temperature affects the length of metal, how gravity influences the swing of a pendulum, how the Earth's rotation is gradually slowing down. In the 20th century, timekeeping took a quantum leap. Scientists discovered that certain crystals, when subjected to electric current, vibrate at extraordinarily stable frequencies. Quartz crystals became the new timekeepers, their atomic vibrations more regular than any pendulum, more reliable than any mechanical gear. The quartz revolution made accurate timekeeping cheap and portable for the first time in human history. But even quartz had its limitations. For the most precise measurements, scientists turned to the atoms themselves. Atomic clocks measure time using the natural frequency of cesium atoms, the rate at which electrons jump between energy levels. These quantum timekeepers are so accurate that they would lose less than 1 second in 100 million years. They don't just keep time, they define it. 1 second is now officially defined as exactly 9,192,631,770 oscillations of a cesium atom. Think about this for a moment. The second you just experienced, lying here in peaceful contemplation, was defined by the quantum dance of electrons in atoms, counted out in billions of oscillations too fast for any human sense to perceive. Time has become a quantum phenomenon, measured in the fundamental rhythms of matter itself. These atomic clocks now form an invisible network that synchronizes the modern world. GPS satellites carry them into orbit, where they tick away in the vacuum of space, their signals allowing your phone to know your location within meters. The internet depends on them to coordinate the billions of messages that flow through fiber optic cables every second. Without atomic timekeeping, the global economy would collapse in minutes. But yet, for all this precision, something paradoxical has happened. The more accurately we can measure time, the more we realize how relative and fluid it actually is. Einstein's theories, which we'll explore further in our journey, revealed that time itself can speed up and slow down, depending on motion and gravity. The perfect, universal time that clockmakers sought for centuries doesn't actually exist. The clockmaker's dream, in the end, was both achieved and transcended. We can now measure time with incredible precision, but we've also discovered that time is far stranger and more mutable than any medieval monk could have imagined. The tick of a clock, once thought to be the steady heartbeat of the universe, is now known to be just one rhythm among many in the vast symphony of space and time. Tonight, as you rest here in the gentle embrace of darkness, you can hear the quiet chorus of timepieces around you, the soft hum of your phone's quartz crystal, the distant chime of a wall clock, the subtle rhythm of your own heartbeat. Each one is part of humanity's long conversation with time, our attempt to understand and measure the invisible current that carries us all forward. The clockmakers gave us more than just accurate time. They gave us a new way of thinking about the universe as something that could be understood, measured, and predicted. They showed us that time, for all its mystery, follows rules, and that human ingenuity could discover and harness those rules. But even as we marvel at these mechanical and quantum achievements, a deeper question begins to stir in the quiet spaces of contemplation. If time can be measured with such precision, what exactly is it that we're measuring? Is time truly the steady, universal river that the clockmakers assumed? Or is it something more complex, more fundamentally woven into the fabric of reality itself?
Close your eyes and picture the most perfect river you can imagine. It flows with absolute consistency, never speeding up, never slowing down, never changing course. Its waters are crystal clear, invisible, and it carries everything within it, every planet, every falling leaf, every thought in your mind at exactly the same pace. This was Isaac Newton's vision of time, and for over 2 centuries it seemed to describe the very heartbeat of the universe. Newton, with his wild hair and penetrating gaze, was a man obsessed with order. In the late 17th century, he looked at the apparent chaos of the natural world, apples falling, planets wandering across the sky, comets appearing and disappearing, and saw underneath it all a magnificent clockwork mechanism. Time, in his vision, was the invisible stage upon which this cosmic drama unfolded, as steady and reliable as the pendulum of a grandfather clock. He called it absolute time, and he described it in words that still echo through physics today. Absolute, true and mathematical time, of itself and from its own nature, flows equably without regard to anything external. Picture those words settling into your mind like snow on a quiet landscape. Time, according to Newton, doesn't care what's happening within it. It flows at the same rate whether you're sitting peacefully as you are now, or racing through space at incredible speeds. It's the same everywhere, for everyone, always. This wasn't just a philosophical idea. It was a practical tool that transformed how humans understood motion and causation. If time flows at the same rate everywhere, then Newton could write equations that described how objects move through space. Drop a stone from a tower in London or in Beijing, and Newton's mathematics could predict exactly where it would be at any moment. The stone moves, but time itself remains constant, providing the unchanging backdrop against which all motion can be measured. Newton's contemporary, the philosopher and mathematician Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz, disagreed profoundly with this vision. In their famous exchange of letters, Leibniz argued that time wasn't a thing at all, but simply a way of describing the relationships between events. Without events, he claimed, there would be no time. Imagine a universe completely empty, except for a single clock ticking away in perfect solitude. For Newton, that clock would still be measuring time, the invisible river flowing past it. For Leibniz, it would be meaningless, a machine measuring nothing in the absence of change. But Newton's vision won out, and for good reason. It worked. With absolute time as his foundation, Newton could build a mathematical framework that described the motion of everything from cannonballs to planets. His laws of motion and universal gravitation created a picture of the universe as a vast, predictable machine. If you knew the position and velocity of every object at any given moment, you could, in principle, calculate the future and the past with perfect accuracy. This deterministic universe was both beautiful and terrifying. Beautiful because it revealed the elegant mathematical laws governing all motion. Terrifying because it suggested that everything, including human actions, was predetermined by the inexorable flow of time and the mechanical operation of physical laws. You might feel like you're making choices, but in Newton's clockwork universe, those choices were already determined by the initial conditions set in motion at the beginning of time. The practical power of Newton's absolute time was extraordinary. It enabled the scientific revolution, allowing scientists to make predictions and test them with unprecedented precision. Astronomers could calculate the return of comets decades in advance. Engineers could design bridges and buildings that would stand for centuries. The Industrial Revolution was built on the foundation of Newtonian mechanics, with its assumption that time flows uniformly for all observers. Think about how this vision of time shaped the world you live in today. The train schedules that synchronized industrial society. The GPS satellites that guide you to your destination. The computer processors that time their operations in billionths of a second. All of these depend on the idea that time can be measured absolutely, that it flows at the same rate for everyone involved. Newton's absolute time also gave birth to our modern sense of temporal anxiety. If time flows constantly forward, never pausing, never slowing down, then every moment is irretrievably lost the instant it passes. This creates the peculiar modern feeling that time is a resource to be managed, saved, or wasted. Your ancestors who lived by the natural rhythms of day and night didn't experience this same pressure. But in Newton's universe, time becomes a river you can never step into twice, flowing past you with mechanical indifference. The mathematical elegance of Newton's framework was breathtaking. He showed that the same force that pulls objects downward is the same force that keeps planets in their orbits. This unification of terrestrial and celestial mechanics was one of the greatest intellectual achievements in human history. And it all depended on the assumption that time flows uniformly throughout the universe. Newton's absolute time also solved practical problems that had puzzled natural philosophers for centuries. How do you describe motion without a fixed reference point? Newton's answer was that space and time themselves provide the reference frame. Objects move through absolute space during absolute time, and these invisible coordinates allow us to describe motion in precise mathematical terms. But there were philosophical depths to this vision that Newton himself recognized. If time is absolute, flowing regardless of what happens within it, then it exists independently of the material universe. This raised profound questions about the nature of reality. Is time a property of God, flowing from divine perfection? Is it a fundamental aspect of existence itself, more basic than matter and energy? Newton grappled with these questions, seeing in the mathematical laws of motion a reflection of divine order. The clockwork universe that emerged from Newton's vision was both magnificent and melancholy. Magnificent because it revealed the mathematical beauty underlying all natural phenomena. Melancholy because it seemed to leave no room for genuine freedom or spontaneity. In a universe where time flows absolutely and all motion follows mathematical laws, are you truly free to choose your thoughts and actions, or are you simply a mechanical machine operating according to predetermined rules? Yet for all its philosophical implications, Newton's absolute time felt intuitively correct. It matched your everyday experience of time as something that flows at a steady pace, indifferent to your desires or fears. When you wait for something important to happen, time seems to slow down, but you know that's just your perception. The real time, Newton's time, continues flowing at its steady pace, measured by the ticking of clocks and the rotation of the Earth. This intuitive appeal helped Newton's vision dominate science for over 2 centuries. Scientists built ever more sophisticated theories on the foundation of absolute time, exploring thermodynamics, electromagnetism, and statistical mechanics. The assumption that time flows uniformly for all observers became so fundamental that questioning it seemed almost absurd. The legacy of Newton's absolute time extends far beyond physics. It shaped how entire civilizations think about progress, causation, and the meaning of existence. The idea that time has a direction, that it flows from the past to the future, underlies our understanding of history, evolution, and personal development. We speak of before and after as if these concepts have absolute meaning, independent of any particular observer. Even our language reflects this Newtonian vision of time. We say that time passes or flows, using metaphors that suggest time is like a river carrying us along. We talk about spending time or saving time as if it were a commodity that can be quantified and managed. These linguistic habits, so natural they seem inevitable, actually reflect a particular way of thinking about time that Newton helped establish. Tonight, as you rest in this peaceful moment, you can feel the comfort of Newton's vision. There's something reassuring about the idea that time provides a stable framework for existence, that it flows steadily onward regardless of the chaos and uncertainty of daily life.
In Newton's universe, time is the one thing you can depend on. Always there, always flowing, always providing the backdrop against which your life unfolds. But even as you appreciate this steady, comforting vision of time, subtle questions begin to stir in the quiet spaces of contemplation. If time is truly absolute, flowing the same for everyone, why does it sometimes feel so fluid and personal? And what would happen if someone could travel very fast, or venture into regions of strong gravity? Would time still flow the same for them as it does for you, lying here in peaceful rest? There's no universal now sweeping through the cosmos. Instead, each conscious being exists in their own temporal bubble, their own personal slice of space-time. Yet for all its strangeness, Einstein's universe is also deeply beautiful. The equations of relativity have an elegant symmetry, revealing deep connections between space, time, matter, and energy. The universe becomes a kind of cosmic dance, where mass and energy curve space-time, and curved space-time guides the motion of mass and energy. Tonight, as you rest in this quiet moment, you're experiencing time at its most personal level. Your body is moving slowly relative to the cosmic background. Sitting in Earth's modest gravitational field, time flows for you at what feels like its natural pace. But somewhere in the universe, on a world orbiting a massive star, time might be flowing much more slowly. In the depths of space, far from any gravitational influence, time might be racing ahead of your earthbound experience. The twin paradox that Einstein described isn't just a thought experiment. It's a real feature of the universe you inhabit. If you had an identical twin who spent their life traveling at very high speeds, they would age more slowly than you. Time, that most intimate aspect of existence, would flow differently for each of you. You would each carry your own personal timeline, your own private relationship with duration. This revelation transforms how we think about the nature of reality itself. Time isn't something that contains the universe. It's something the universe creates through its own structure and dynamics. Every massive object, every movement, every pulse of energy contributes to the complex tapestry of space-time that defines how time flows at each point in the cosmos. As you settle deeper into rest, feeling the gentle passage of your own personal time, you might wonder, if Einstein's revolution showed us that time is relative and gravity can bend it, what happens at the smallest scales of reality? In the quantum realm, where particles behave in ways that defy everyday intuition, how does time itself behave?
You have traveled through the vast architecture of time, witnessed its flow through galaxies, and felt its pulse in the rhythms of your own body. Now let yourself drift deeper still, into a realm so small that the very nature of existence becomes whisper-soft and strange. Here, in the quantum realm, time itself begins to dance. Imagine shrinking beyond atoms, beyond their dancing electrons, into spaces so tiny that they exist at the very edge of what can be known. This is where the universe keeps its deepest secrets, where the solid certainty of everyday experience dissolves into something far more mysterious and beautiful. In this microscopic sanctuary, time does not march forward with the steady precision of a clock, but flickers like candlelight in an ancient cathedral. At this quantum scale, you discover that the present moment, the now you experience as you listen to these words, is not the sharp, definite point it seems to be. Instead, it spreads like morning mist across a lake, soft and uncertain, existing in multiple states simultaneously. Here, an electron can be spinning both clockwise and counterclockwise at the same time, waiting for the gentle touch of observation to choose its dance. Picture yourself as a quantum particle, suspended in this ethereal space where possibility reigns supreme. You exist not in one place, but in a cloud of potential locations, each one real until the moment someone tries to find you. This is the quantum superposition, where being and not being waltz together in perfect harmony. Time in this realm is not a river flowing in one direction, but an ocean of probability, where all moments exist simultaneously, like notes in a chord that has not yet been played. The quantum world operates on what physicists call the uncertainty principle, discovered by Werner Heisenberg in his quiet contemplation of nature's hidden laws. This principle whispers that you cannot know where a particle is and how fast it is moving with perfect precision. The more precisely you try to pin down one aspect, the more the other slips away like sand through your fingers. It is as if the universe itself is teaching us about the beauty of not knowing, the grace that exists in uncertainty. This uncertainty extends to time itself.
In the quantum realm, energy can borrow itself from the future, creating particles that exist for impossibly brief moments before returning what they borrowed, like cosmic loan sharks of the vacuum. These virtual particles pop into existence and vanish again in time frames so short that they make a hummingbird's wing beat seem like a geological epoch. They are the universe's way of saying that even nothingness is alive with possibility. You float here in this quantum meditation, feeling the strange comfort of existing in multiple states at once. There is no anxiety in this uncertainty, only a deep peace that comes from understanding that reality itself is far gentler and more flexible than our everyday experience suggests. The quantum world does not deal in harsh absolutes, but in soft probabilities, in maybes and perhapses that shimmer like aurora in the darkness. Consider the quantum phenomenon of entanglement, where particles become so intimately connected that measuring one instantly affects the other, regardless of the distance between them. Einstein called this spooky action at a distance, but there is nothing spooky about it when you experience it from within. It is more like recognizing that separation is an illusion, that at the deepest level, all things are connected by invisible threads of correlation that transcend space and time. In this entangled state, time becomes even more mysterious. When two particles are quantum entangled, they share a kind of temporal intimacy that defies our ordinary understanding. A change in one creates an instantaneous response in the other, as if they exist in a shared present moment that stretches across the universe. This is not faster-than-light communication, but something far more profound, a demonstration that the universe is not made of separate things connected by forces, but of relationships that create the illusion of separation. The quantum world teaches us that observation itself is a creative act. Before you look, a quantum particle exists in superposition, in all possible states simultaneously. The moment you observe it, the superposition collapses into a single reality, like a wave function crystallizing into experience. This means that consciousness and physical reality are not separate realms, but participants in a cosmic dance where observation and existence intertwine. You breathe here in this quantum space, feeling the gentle pulse of probability waves that surround you. These waves are not made of matter or energy in any conventional sense, but of pure information, pure possibility. They carry within them all the potential futures that could unfold, all the moments that could be. When these waves collapse into reality, they create the classical world of definite outcomes and linear time that you know so well. Time dilation, which you encountered in the cosmic realm, takes on new meaning here. In the quantum world, time can stretch and compress, not just due to gravity and velocity, but due to the very act of measurement itself. The Zeno effect shows that by observing a quantum system frequently enough, you can actually slow down its evolution, freezing it in time through the pure act of attention. It is as if consciousness itself has the power to edit the flow of time. The quantum realm suggests that the present moment is not an infinitesimal point between past and future, but a quantum foam of possibility where all potentials exist in superposition. The now you experience is the result of countless quantum collapses, each one selecting a specific reality from the infinite garden of possibility. Your present moment is thus not something that happens to you, but something that you participate in creating through the very act of being conscious. In this understanding, time becomes less like a river and more like a quantum field, an invisible substrate that permeates all existence, creating the stage upon which the drama of reality unfolds. The quantum field is not empty space, but a seething sea of virtual particles and potential energy, constantly creating and destroying possible futures in time frames too brief for ordinary awareness to detect. You rest here in this quantum moment, feeling the deep peace that comes from understanding that uncertainty is not a flaw in the universe, but its most beautiful feature. In a world of absolute determinism, there would be no room for consciousness, no space for choice, no possibility for surprise or wonder. The quantum realm gifts us with genuine freedom, the freedom that comes from a universe that is not entirely predictable, not entirely controlled, but alive with creative potential. The quantum world reminds us that reality is far more participatory than we typically imagine. We are not passive observers of a predetermined universe, but active participants in the ongoing creation of reality. Every moment of consciousness, every act of observation, every choice we make contributes to the collapse of quantum superposition into the experienced world. As you prepare to journey onward from this quantum sanctuary, you carry with you the understanding that the present moment is not a prison of fixed reality, but a garden of infinite possibility. The quantum realm has shown you that at the deepest level, existence is not about certainty and control, but about the beautiful dance between the known and the unknown,
between being and becoming. And in this dance you begin to sense something even more profound. That consciousness itself might be the universe's way of experiencing its own quantum nature, of collapsing the infinite possibilities into the miracle of aware existence. This realization opens another door in your journey, leading you toward an even deeper mystery: the nature of consciousness itself and its intricate relationship with the fabric of time.
You have journeyed far through the landscapes of time, from the birth of stars to the dance of quantum particles, from the measured ticking of clocks to the fluid uncertainty of possibility itself. Now, in this quiet sanctuary of the present moment, you find yourself returning home to the most profound mystery of all, the gift of now. Here, in the soft rhythm of your breathing, time reveals its deepest secret. It is not that the present moment is just one point on an infinite timeline, but that it is the only place where time truly exists at all. The past lives only in memory, the future only in imagination, but the present, this gentle now that cradles your awareness, is where the universe actually unfolds its story. Feel how this moment holds everything you have learned about time's nature. In your body, billions of cellular clocks are synchronizing their ancient rhythms, each one a descendant of the first timekeepers that learned to dance with the sun. Your heart beats with a steady pulse that has echoed through countless generations, carrying forward the primordial rhythm that began when the first living thing learned to count the moments of its existence.
The air you breathe carries within it the signatures of time itself. Each oxygen molecule has traveled through the cores of distant stars, forged in the nuclear furnaces of suns that lived and died billions of years ago. The carbon in your bones was born in stellar explosions that scattered the elements of life across the cosmos. You are quite literally made of star time, your very substance a living chronicle of the universe's temporal journey. In this moment of quiet awareness, you embody the meeting place of all timescales. The quantum fluctuations in your neurons operate on timescales of nanoseconds, while the thoughts they generate unfold over seconds and minutes. The proteins in your cells fold and unfold in microseconds, while the memories they help create may last a lifetime. You are a temporal symphony, harmonizing the fastest and slowest rhythms of existence. Your consciousness itself is time's most remarkable creation. It is the universe's way of experiencing duration, of creating meaning from the flow of moments. Without consciousness, time would be merely a dimension through which events occur. But with awareness, time becomes something far more precious, a canvas upon which experience paints its infinite masterpiece. Consider how your mind creates the present moment. Neuroscientists have discovered that what you experience as now is actually a construction, a weaving together of sensory information that arrives at your brain at slightly different times. The light reaching your eyes, the sound touching your ears, the sensations from your skin, all of these are integrated into a single coherent experience of the present. Your brain is constantly creating now from the scattered fragments of temporal experience. This neurological present moment lasts about 3 seconds, the span of time within which your consciousness can hold events as simultaneous. It is the temporal window through which you experience the world, neither too narrow to be meaningful, nor too wide to be coherent. In this 3-second sanctuary, you find the perfect balance between the fleeting and the eternal. The gift of now is not just that it exists, but that it is infinitely renewable. Each moment offers itself freely, without conditions or reservations. You cannot save it, cannot spend it, cannot lose it. You can only receive it. This is perhaps the most generous aspect of time's nature, its complete availability to conscious experience, its willingness to be fully present in each instant of awareness. In this understanding, you begin to see that time is not something that happens to you, but something you participate in creating. Your attention is the force that transforms the abstract flow of duration into the lived experience of moments. Where you place your awareness, there you create meaning. How you breathe, how you listen, how you simply exist, all of these are acts of temporal creation. The present moment is where all of time's stories converge. The ancient light of distant galaxies arrives at your eyes in this instant, carrying information from billions of years ago. The quantum processes in your brain operate on timescales so brief they seem to touch eternity. The memories that shape your identity stretch back through decades, while your hopes and intentions reach forward into tomorrow. All of these temporal threads weave together in the gentle fabric of now. Scientists speak of the specious present, the idea that the present moment is not a mathematical point, but a duration, a small stretch of time that feels immediate and alive. This specious present is where your life actually happens, where love is felt, where beauty is recognized, where meaning is born. It is the temporal home of consciousness itself. In this moment, you can feel the deep democracy of time.
It moves at the same rate for everyone, grants the same present moment to all conscious beings. The hummingbird in its rapid flight and the ancient sequoia in its slow growth both inhabit the same flowing now. Time is the great equalizer, the universal gift that asks nothing in return but attention. Your breathing becomes a meditation on time's nature. Each inhale draws in the present moment. Each exhale releases it back to the flow of duration. You are not breathing air so much as breathing time itself, taking in the eternal now and giving it back transformed by the alchemy of consciousness. This is the fundamental exchange between awareness and existence, the universe experiencing itself through the gift of your presence. The profound truth begins to settle into your awareness. The present moment is not just when life happens, but how life happens. It is the mechanism by which the universe transforms possibility into reality, potential into experience. Every moment of consciousness is a small miracle of creation, an instance where the abstract becomes concrete, where the possible becomes actual. You rest here in this understanding, feeling the gentle weight of time's gift. The present moment asks nothing of you but to be present to it. It requires no skill, no effort, no achievement, only the simple willingness to exist here, now, in this eternal instant that is always arriving and never departing. As you breathe in this temporal sanctuary, you begin to sense that consciousness and time are not separate phenomena, but two aspects of the same cosmic dance. Time gives consciousness its rhythm, while consciousness gives time its meaning. Together, they create the stage upon which the entire drama of existence unfolds, from the birth of stars to the quiet miracle of your own aware presence in this perfect, eternal now.